What up? What up? Happy Friday. Coop's in the building. Mike D's in the building. We got some music to talk about.
Yeah,
Welcoming everybody into the room. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I love new music, man. It's nothing like new music, nothing like new hip hop music. And tonight we have Westside Gunn, Hitler Wears Herman's 8 Side B to talk about. Um, Listen, earlier this year, I would say, maybe let's just say earlier this summer, Westside put it out there that he was putting out a double disc for the final installment of the Hitler Wears Herman series. And, we all were ecstatic because, Westside dropped 3 albums last year, 3 quality albums last year. And we hadn't heard from him as far as like him putting out a full project in 2021 so far. So we knew he was working and he was working on some good stuff, right? And so when he dropped side A, we were thinking what? The following week this side B was coming? Side A was quality.
No, I was thinking 2 weeks. I was
Two
thinking two
weeks.
weeks. I was thinking 2 weeks.
So side A was quality. I think, you know what I'm saying, we spoke very favorably of that. Honestly, you know what I'm saying, just based on the standards that I have for Westside, based on what he put out last year, his output last year, certain songs he was putting out this year, TV Boy, Julia Lang, I was like, okay, I like it, but I know where the levels are. Then he started talking this one up. He started talking side B up. I got even more excited. He put out the features last week. He put out the production credits last week. And he was saying that this side was much better than side A. If you like side A, side B was going to be crazy. And, fast forward to this week. We've heard it. What were your first impressions of Hitler Wears Herman's 8 Side B? Had to do a
You
little
know,
build up to it, man.
you know what my first impressions were personally because I texted it to you, which was
Yeah.
Hell on Earth 2 is George Bondo Brutus level. Oh my God.
Well, you know what? We could start there. We could start there because that is the first track
Thought.
on the first full track on the album.
My first thought.
Is it better than
Yeah.
George Bondo?
I mean, Mike, I immediately thought it's like it kind of goes harder. I don't know if lyrically it's hard to say because it's like Conway's verse on Hell on Earth 2 is better than his verse on George Bondo. And Benny's kind of like right at the same level, and so is Westside. And I think the beat is better actually, and they actually feel more engaged. And I don't know. I'm a Mobb Deep fan, so you can't ask me that. So,
I think, I'm gonna be real. I think Benny's verse on George Bondo is better. Um,
then his verse on here,
yes.
yeah, but that was like verse of the year contender type of stuff. But that's what I mean. Like he's same level. Like it's not a drop off. It's like you probably would prefer the George Bondo verse, but there's nothing wrong with the output of that
No,
verse.
no, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. The George Bondo verse is just crazy. But again, he's batting clean up on there too.
Well, I
Um,
told you, Mike, that actually that George Bondo verse is the only time I really heard somebody out rap Conway last year. I said that. Like the only time that happened was on George Bondo.
Yo, man, Benny went in. I agree with you though. I think the beat is better on this record. I like when they start off albums with the Griselda song. It sets the pace. And I know you texted me earlier, well, not earlier, when the album dropped at midnight. You didn't like the 2 interludes at the beginning, or the interlude and the skit at the beginning of the album. You think that the album should have just straight up started with Hell on Earth Part 2. Can you speak to that?
Those were my thoughts. Like late last night, I kind of have those thoughts like a little bit more refined, and I'm glad you asked me because I'm gonna get to it. First of all, I still feel the way I feel about the whole like Brody Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Because of Hell on Earth 2 and how strong it is, you can kind of cut that because cats are going to skip that anyway once they hear Hell on Earth 2 for the first time. And and I'm going to say this. Do you remember Striving for Perfection, intro to the Purple Tape?
Yeah.
It's 1 minute and 44 seconds long.
Yeah.
This is almost double that. And so when you're doing the vein of music that they're doing, you're trying to epitomize a feel. You also have a certain amount of time and a time frame to kind of capture people in terms of replay value. And because of the length of it, and because of how strong Hell on Earth 2 is, those first two tracks might tell me that everybody's not just going to end up skipping them and going straight to Hell on Earth 2. So it's like that's kind of like where the album starts for people, and that's kind of maybe where you just should have started it because of that.
And
You feel
I
me?
know, and you're right. I mean, we're nitpicking, and just for the people that are watching, we're nitpicking real heavy because Westside has a standard when it comes to putting together albums. We're gonna get to this at a latter part of the show, but I think he's one of the best at putting together hip hop albums, that there is, ever was, and currently he's the guy doing it. So when we're talking about things like this, we're definitely nitpicking, but it's just what it is. You know what I mean? Like you want to see an album that is really, really good be even better if you can. And I agree with you. I've always been the kind of listener that skipped through interludes and skits. That would be one of my gripes with the purple tape. There's a lot of that. Like I hate that I have to fast forward through Glaciers of Ice for a minute. I love Ghost talking about his wallabies and how he painted them and shit, but I really wish that I could just hit the button and Glaciers of Ice just come in. Like straight on the block, Reebok, Gun Cop, Avalanche Rock, Get Paid Off, Mass Murderers, Services. One of the things that I really liked about Akumanai, we're talking about really classic, perfect albums, is the fact that they never started songs off with those skits or even had you skip through interludes. Like you even find yourself
They
listening
gave you the
to,
song first.
yeah, you even
Mike,
find
Mike,
yourself listening to James freestyle in jail.
hold on, Mike. That is a reason why I do have Aquemini slightly ahead of the purple tape. I do feel like the skits were put together slightly better. But
Yeah.
here's what I'm saying. When I'm saying you're making the vein of music that they're making, I bring up Striving for Perfection in that intro. Is
Right.
because sometimes when you're putting the purple tape in, because of the songs that are like coming in with it, you don't mind taking a minute or two, like while you're cranking up your car, getting whatever together right quick, like playing the intro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it's almost 4 minutes long, and then it's like 5 minutes of material between both intros before there's some actual music. No. That's a long time to ask somebody like to play something when we're talking about the high quality of music that we find on here that we're about to talk about as well.
No, definitely, and I agree with you. I think that that track was just way, way too long. What was it? 3 minutes of just
It's
talking?
like 3 minutes and 20 something seconds. But all I'm saying is like cut it in half.
No, somebody said Shamario Patterson said better than the purple tape. Oh, we talking about Kumina. Yeah, I mean
No,
that's debatable. Yeah, nobody's saying that
I mean
anything that came out
I have them
recently.
at I have them at 2 and 3 all the time. I mean,
Yeah. They're side by side. But yes, I agree, man. Like to start, so you would have started the album off with Brody, then Hell on Earth Part Two, or
no.
just straight
I
up Hell
mean,
on Earth
for me
Part Two.
personally, I just would have just straight went to Hell on Earth too, because that's
Okay.
what people are going to do anyway. That's what I did the day when I went back in the day after listening. I listened to half of it last night, but when I went back in the day, like I was like, yep, you can go ahead.
Do you think that's maybe like a selfish artist moment where the artist is like, no, you gotta hear this, and the listener is not going to? Like when,
I think
as an artist, do you say, okay, let me make a decision for the listener as opposed to myself?
I think we're going to get to part of that later on in the show because
Hmm.
I think in the long term scope of this album, I kind of understand why he may want to do something like that.
Right.
Maybe that's a not for now moment. That's a for later moment when you go back and can play something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that's archive type stuff, and that's why I'm talking about the execution of it is so important. So if it's so important for you to put it in there, find a way to make those first 5 minutes between those two tracks more like 2 minutes to 3 minutes.
I agree with
You know,
you, and I think
and
that yeah.
and, and he's been excellent at that if anybody else has, so we know he's more than capable of it. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
wrestling interviews and stuff that he does even on this album is like dope. It's like, okay, so like you still know what you're doing. Like
Yeah, I
it's still
love the one
there. So
about the mask and all that stuff. I think it's at the end of
was that Bob
Riches.
Backlund? I think
Yeah.
that's Bob Backlund. That's a Bob Backlund, yeah. I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
shit is
yo,
hard, man. I mean,
that's us.
and you know what? I was kind of one of the people that was like, okay, I get it because this is the end of the series, right? So this is the final of the Hitler Wears Hermes series. Westside said it. He's putting it to rest. That's one of the reasons why I guess that dialogue, he felt that it was that necessary. But as far as the album flow goes, not so much. And you're right. This is something that may be appreciated maybe 5 years from now when people go back at the series and listen to in how you start. But as a listener right
Yeah,
now, you see 20
right.
songs, you're skipping straight to Hell on Earth, and it doesn't help that case that Hell on Earth is just such a banger. Like you
I mean,
said, you
Mike.
want to
I
get
mean,
straight to it.
Mike. After I heard it for the first time, I tried to immediately think to myself, "Is there a better hip hop song this year?"
Before you go on, I'm gonna go to the chat. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Andrew says, "Like your shirt, Coop." Don
Oh yeah,
says, "King's Disease 2 still album of the year, waiting on Push and K Dot." We're gonna get to that too.
yeah. I think we're gonna cover that too.
All right. So you were at Hell on Earth Part 2, and we were talking about the possibility of Hell on Earth Part 2 being better than George Bondo and on Brutus level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it is. I mean, time is always gonna tell. But those were my immediate first two thoughts just about that record was that's George Bondo Brutus level by those three. And it's probably I immediately thought of about Nobody on the on KD2. And I was like, those are probably the best two hip hop records that I've heard this year. And
Ah,
these are
another verse of the year candidate too.
oh, I mean, don't you think Conway's verse on here is verse of the year candidate?
I think so. What do you guys think in the chat?
Tote Metal, the Boy Special,
Yeah.
wordplay on Big Pun level.
That last line about wearing a dress. I mean, listen. He did post a picture of him wearing something that resembled a kilt. So it wasn't like, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, are we going to get into fashion aesthetics today, especially with me wearing a pink shirt? By the way, this is my brother's clothing line, like the shirt that I'm wearing. Like these shirts I've been wearing, this is my brother's clothing line.
Dope,
Kubari.
dope. Good
Yeah.
shit. Yeah, let's put those on according to hip hop and sell them, man. We'll work out a deal, and
Yeah, he got, yeah. You know, we got to, never mind. Yeah, we'll talk.
We'll talk. We'll work that out. All right. So you said record of the year and possible verse of the year with Conway's verse.
Yeah, it's a first of the year contender, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
You said behind the scenes you felt like Electronica's verse maybe on Donda. Was it right?
Yeah. Lord
That's how you
Jesus.
feel?
Yeah, I think Jay Electronica's verse on Lord Jesus could possibly be a verse of the year contender. Speaking of Jay Electronica, he's on the next track. What did you think about Jay Electronica's track, Free Cutter?
Cutter is excellent.
Yeah.
Like I love that record. I think it's an appropriate follow up. It's a really strong record. I mean, are we just gonna kind of?
Are we going track for track or?
Yeah.
Give your overall. I mean, because I know it's 20 tracks. Just give your overall because I know we're going to talk about the features and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about double disc and all those things and what could have been changed around. Give your overall on this album.
My overall thought about this album is it's probably the second or third best album that I've heard this year, but I feel like there are potential moments where it possibly could have been the album of the year. And it's kind of funny for somebody who's really, really good at being concise. I feel like this project is actually hurt by how much is on here, not by what is on here per se. Mm-hmm. It's like there's stuff that he could have just taken out and made more concise, and this album would have been better. And even with that said, I think it's an album of the year contender. I find AZ's Do or Die 2 and Nas's King's Disease to be on the same level, but more concise at this point. But if we just want to talk about hip hop songs, like it's got more hip hop songs. It's got more hip hop songs than Slap than both of those albums, but it's not put together as well as those albums. But also saying that too, it's like if you actually look at his overall run, well, this is still another top 5 album that he's putting out. like for how many straight years now?
Right, right. I mean, you know what? To kind of
So it's
piggyback
like
off of that. Oh, go ahead.
so
I'm
so
sorry.
even, so even if no, what I'm saying is even if it's not album of the year, if you actually like look at what he's been doing the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, you can just go to last year. Mike, I told you, like he executive produced the two best albums last year,
Yeah,
in my
definitely.
opinion. You go to Supreme Blientele, you go to this. I mean, that's for the last 5 years he's made a top five rap album or executive produced a top five rap album, and that's not counting the stuff like Pray for Haiti.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
I mean, even what was what? It was an album that I went and listened.
And Mike, Pray for Haiti is going to make our top albums list. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And I don't know what
definitely.
his role is in Conway's God Don't Make Mistakes, but if he executive produces that like he did From a King to a God, that's another notch too. Because I know both of the We Pray for Haiti is going to make our best albums list. I'm pretty certain, unless like there's just an avalanche of like great albums that fall through the last few months of the year.
Right.
And Conway still hasn't dropped his project yet, but
Anything with Westside's name on it, I trust it. You know what I'm saying? And he's gotten to that rare air where it's one of those things where if Kanye has, executive production on a person's album, I'm gonna check it out. Dr. Dre too, and he again, I'm not putting him in that class when it comes to producers per se, but when we're talking about actually putting together projects, he's up there, man. And with that being said, I think that is, first of all, I think that this is a very dope effort. I like it a lot better than side A, and I like side A.
it's better than
But
Friday.
it's better than side A. I I agree with you. I don't think that I could put it anywhere outside of the top three of hip hop albums that came out this year. But what I will say, and we're gonna get to this, I think that Westside suffered from knowing how to put together albums so well that he kept so much. I know you and I just got through talking about, Thriller versus Purple Rain and all that. And, we were talking about the intricacies in Quincy and Michael's relationship when it came to them getting rid of very good songs on a project that just is damn near is perfect. It's not even damn near perfect. Thriller's perfect. But the choices they had to make were like songs like Carousel or Human Nature, and it's like, okay, we Carousel's a good song, it's a really good song, but we got to keep Human Nature. And I think that in Westside's mind, in those type of scenarios, he kept both. You know what I'm saying? um and again, that's not to say that any of these songs are like super weak on that level, but at the end of the day, when you have a level going and your level starts at Hell on Earth Part 2, you got to keep that momentum up. And there are some records on there that aren't bad records, but they kind of dip that momentum. You know what I mean? And get in the way of
That's
that
what I'm saying.
cohesiveness.
We know what he is, we know who he is, we know what his level is, and the way he's starting it off with Hell on Earth and Free Cutter, it's like, oh well, we know what you're going for.
Hmm.
So it's like you hear those two records, those two actual songs, you immediately start thinking, okay, album of the year contender,
Right.
you know. And
Yeah.
so that is the bar, and that's what you measure it up against. And to that, I would say, and you want to know, it's funny how I really feel about it overall.
What's
And
up?
it's funny that you bring up AZ, and it's funny that AZ is on this album on one of the best tracks, the 99 Avarex with him and Stove and Westside,
Hmm.
which is masterful. I think that's one of the five best records on here, which is saying a lot, I think. Um, he's kind of doing like Westside. It's like those albums are like 2 and 3 to me right now, depending on what you prefer. If you prefer the more like adult side of hip hop, on a high level, like lyrically and production wise, you might like Do or Die 2 more because it's more concise. And AZ lyrically, even at this stage, I mean, he like AZ is still top notch at this stage, Mike.
Yeah,
Like
he's
he
super
has no
consistent.
problem rhyming next to anybody at any moment still, which is
Yeah.
saying a lot. Yeah, and
As an MC,
so
he's aged very well, and same way with Styles P, Jada, what I'm saying, Chic, Black
right,
Thought, and guys like that.
right. But some of his stuff on here just feels epic, like Hell on Earth 2, Free Cutter. Best Dressed Demons, 99 Avarex, Survivor Series 95, Forest Lawn, Ostertag, Celine Dion. Like there's some stuff on here and it's tough, boy.
I
Woo.
saw, and we're gonna get to the features in a minute. I saw a tweet from Fake Shore Drive earlier today, and shout out to
Who,
them. And they were saying that
who is
uh,
it?
Fake Shore Drive.
I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah, yeah, they do some dope interviews, man. They interviewed Common, what I'm saying, out there in Chicago or whatever. But anyway, man, he said something that I was like, yeah, I get it. He said that basically, I'm paraphrasing. Westside gets the best out of people in their, when they're featured on his albums, and it reminds me of a Ghostface in that way. When people show up to a Ghostface session for a Supreme clientele, you're gonna get the best. And we were just talking about the purple tape. I think the beauty of the purple tape to me, Raekwon and Ghost, I guess you could say he co-hosted it. They got the best out of everybody that was on there.
Yeah. No,
And
no, no, no.
and
No, I get what you're
Westside
saying.
consistently does that. Andrew says top five for me this year: Donda, Bo Jackson, Man on the Moon, 2, Vince Staples, and All the Brilliant Things. I love All the Brilliant Things. I think that's a top five for me too. Andre Shashir says very nice album, but I wish he had more songs produced by Derringer Beats, The Butcher, and The Alchemist.
I don't think production is a problem on here. Like some
Mm-mm.
of these, no, I mean, because here's the thing: because he's created a feel and a vibe, the producers are coming to the table with certain sounds and aesthetics for him
Oh
anyway.
yeah.
So I don't miss Derringer or Beat Butcher on here as much. And you want to know what? I think the more fair thing to do is to kind of talk about maybe the tracks
Okay.
that are more questionable. Like how do you feel about Richie? Because I feel like Richie slowed the momentum a little too early for me.
I like
For Richie,
Richie's, and I was
I
talking.
like it. I like it, but it's like look at the songs that's before it.
I listen.
Tell me that's
It's funny you say that. I like it too. I don't love the placement. I honestly don't love the
right.
placement
That's not
of.
fair. Like
I
that's not
think
fair to
that
that song.
I think the Tyler song is too far back. I think
That's what I
that
mean.
yeah,
So what did I text you when I saw the playlist? I was like, I don't like that the stove stuff is all the way in the back like that.
yeah,
Because it's like when I was looking how it was lining up, I mean, you have to understand on the first two tracks, you were talking about having Benny Conway and Electronica on there. So I was like, oh. Well,
yeah.
you can't just kind of like that's a lot of steam if you deliver on those records, and he delivered on those records. So then throwing Richie's in right there, I don't know. That would have been a nice moment to throw like I don't know, Survivor Series 95 is a little further back, 99 Avarex is further back,
Mm-hmm.
Ostertag is further back. Like one of those records is really strong, that's further back. It would have been nice to kind of slide that in and maybe fade Richie's to the back a little bit because you're right, it just didn't feel fair to place it there.
I
And
got
it's
the
not like
track
it's a
list
bad
on
record.
the.
None of these records are bad, but there are
Mm-hmm.
some records on here where it's just like, whoa, there's a level and there's a difference.
I got the track list on the screen, and we're going to be going back and forth to this track list because obviously it's a lot to talk about, from production to features to the order of the songs and to what songs we would have cut, because that's a conversation I want to have too. Because again, I mentioned that I feel like this project suffers mostly from the fact that Westside just kept too many songs. Um, you felt
I
like
can
he shouldn't have put Julia Lang or TV Boy on there, right?
Well, because because the strength of the songs is already there on the project. Like what I'm saying is that we've already heard those records, and
Right.
he didn't really need to do that on this project. Like like there are 10 songs on here that are fucking with anything on King's Disease 2 and on Do or Die 2, All the Brilliant Things, Call Me If You Get
Yeah.
Lost, The House is Burning, yeah. So like he's right there. It's just like when we're talking about album of the year and getting critical and getting specific, and also too, we're now grading him like on a great slash like pretty much legendary type of level because
Yeah.
look at the work.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. This isn't like when he dropped Supreme Blind Tell. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
Like
you're right.
Supreme Blind Tell was part of the reason why It's Been Leveled Up and Pray for Paris and executive producing From a King to a God and Pray for Haiti. And now this project. So the level in the bar that we're weighing him on is extremely high. And because of that, the critique is going to be as such. And so
we got people in the chat talking about album of the year stuff, and we're gonna get to that. And I want to ask you something
that's what I'm
real quick.
saying.
I want to ask you something real quick. When we're talking about album of the year and we talk about Hitler Wears Herman's 8, are we doing this collectively, or is side A an album in itself, and side B is an album in itself? Is that what we're doing? Where it's like side A could be like, number 8, and side B could be number 3. Are we doing that, or are we just pulling them all together?
Well, it's funny that you say that, Mike, because one of the things that I wanted to say is that I feel like this is the second or third best album of the year, which makes it an album of the year contender for certain. But my real thought was, and I kind of wrote this off to the side, I would take actually the 10 best songs on side B and the 4 best songs I feel like on side A, and that's your